Jeez Louise. We're in a pocket rocket crossover. This is the Mazda CX-30 crossover turbo. Let's see what's packing underneath the hood. We have a 2.5 liter turbo setup. Made it to a 6-speed auto. Man, this hood is so heavy. Mazda could really benefit from turning this thing to aluminum from steel. But 227 horsepower on regular, up to 250 horsepower on premium, 320 pound-feet of torque on that premium fuel as well. This thing scoots this tiny crossover to 60. Well, we'll find out here in a little bit. So let's lower this down. And the Mazda CX-30, very handsome, tiny crossover. Traditional Mazda grille, simple lights. You know, it's kind of like a lifted Mazda 3. It's on the same platform, shares the same powertrains. Now, you'll notice with this vehicle is that the windows are absolutely tiny from the outside. So I wonder if that will have something to play with the interior visibility as well. But, you know, what those windows do on the outside though, is that it makes it look like more of a coupe-like vehicle. We have these huge doors, tiny windows, tiny cabin that makes it look very, very sporty. Now, one thing Mazda could do, maybe with a refresh of the CX-30, is give us some paint matched wheel arches. We have a ton of this rugged plastic cladding over the wheels and at the bottom of the doors. It's just unnecessary, and I think it would really make this vehicle super premium looking if they could paint match the bumpers and wheel arches on this. Now, every CX-30 is all-wheel drive, regardless if you get the base 2.5 liter non-turbo or this fully decked out turbo model. I love the simplicity of the dual exhaust here. These rear taillights look a lot like the Mazda 3. Simple, beautiful. Mazda has great designs overall. So let's go ahead and lift up this lift back. It is automated here on this top of the line turbo model. Tons of cargo space in my opinion. It's very deep, very boxy, so you can stack stuff up here quite easily. Now, I like the simplicity and easy to get child latches or tethers, and these seats do fold down 60/20. Flipping this up, we do have a spare tire with the Bose subwoofer mounted on the inside of that. I love that feature because the Bose sound system in here is fantastic. It gets really, really loud for such a small car. It pumps a ton of volume in here. Let's go ahead and get in the back seat of the CX-30. You know, hard touch at the top, despite this being the most expensive model. This is all leather here around the armrest with the stitching. Now, we have this black and brown two-tone. It's almost impossible to tell that it has this brown color to it, but in the back seat, it's all black with brown perforation, little circles here. Now, let's see what it's like for headroom and a legroom. Well, legroom, it's not great because this is set for me at 6'1". My knees don't have a lot of room. This is not a great vehicle if you're putting adults in the back regularly. Plus, you have this huge drive shaft to send power to the rear wheels. And yeah, it's just gonna limit your feet space. What about head space? Actually, surprisingly, despite this having a small window line and tiny windows in here, I have a good amount of headroom back here. Mazda's kind of carved this area out for head space. It's been okay for my kids, you know, it is very tight for them. Pretty much I have to keep the backpacks up here for them so they can get in and out of this back row. So even for kids, it's not the most ideal situation. You'd rather be getting a Mazda CX-5 or CX-50 or CX-90. That's a much better option for families. I do have vents back here, which is more of a premium feature. No USBs here. Do I have them in the armrest? The answer is no. Very high quality armrest here, very soft. It's comfortable for the arms, but yeah, there's no escaping the tightness in my feet back here. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And you know, it actually wasn't that hard to get in and out. In a lot of vehicles that have better legroom, sometimes you run into the rear wheel arch, and I didn't have a problem here. So egress, ingress is not too bad. Let's go ahead and get on the inside here. Soft touch here compared to the hard touch in the back. We have well, this is kind of hard touch. Even though it looks like this leather material down here, it's more of a hard touch brown accent with stitching on the top. It does look good, does look premium for sure. Bose sound system here. I wish we had a little bit fancier grills, but we have this glossy piano black around the window switches as well. We do have automatic up and down on all the windows, which is great. Definitely a premium feature. Power seat here, and then we have this brown accented black seat, and then you have this chocolate brown in here and on the door panels. Not my cup of tea, to be honest, nor is this amount of glossy black plastic here. Mazda's trying to get away from that. This is still kind of like carryover from the previous generation in terms of design and materials. It still looks premium in here. It feels really nice with the soft touch here on the dash, soft touch up here with the stitching. The screen looks like it was designed to be sunken into the dash, even though it's not a touch screen. So actually I would take away some of that beauty, bring it closer, integrate it here onto the front of the dash, and that way I don't have to rely on the rotary knob here, which I have to rely on it for everything. I can't use it at all, even in Android Auto. Volume knob's easy to get to, so I do appreciate that. I like the traditional shifter here. Mazda steering wheels are typically very, very comfortable. Now this vehicle is built in Mexico. A lot of us forget Mazda builds some of their vehicles, CX-30s, as well as some of the Mazda 3s down there. And the stitching on this, I would give it maybe a B. In other Mazda vehicles, maybe from Japan, I've seen like in the CX-90, you have absolutely perfect stitching, and it's pretty good here, just not top class, I would say. This is, man, this has been on Mazda vehicles since I feel like 10 plus years ago, the triple dial setup, which I don't mind. You have the tach on the left, the speedometer in the middle that's customizable. It's actually a digital screen here, while these are manual, or should I say analog gauges. It's something I'll kind of miss because it's so functional and easy to read, but you know, customizable digital screen is the, you know, where this vehicle should be for where it's costing, in my opinion. Behind the steering wheel, we have a head-up display. Not sure if the camera's going to pick it up. I do enjoy it. It is nice and clear. Blind spot monitor pulls up on there. Speaking of blind spot monitors, on the edge of the mirror, and we have this little stink bug coming along for the ride with us today. No panel roof, and that's something, you know, I had my kids in the back seat picking up from school. I opened up the roof for them and they're like, more, because they've been spoiled with panoramic roofs. So they wanted me to open up the non-panoramic roof and let more light into the cabin. Unfortunately, it's a really, really small sunroof here. And I have great headroom despite having a sunroof in here. So very well done. I actually have more headroom in here than I did in the Toyota Crown that I had last week. Felt lined sunglass holder, lifting up the armrest here. It's not a lot of space, and that's something about the CX-30. It's just kind of cramped experience. Like, it's hard for me to get to my cup holders because the shifter's always in the way. It's hard for me to get to my phone because my phone has to be tethered for Android Auto, and there's no place to really put it unless I run a cord all the way back here. So in terms of space, I'm just limited in terms of functionality, and that's why, like, if you didn't have this stuff here, you could clean that up, just integrate it in the touchscreen. You have more space to just do normal things, put your items in throughout the vehicle. I do like the climate control, simple fan control here, temperature control with the dial. AC in here works pretty good in my testing here in hot Florida. But let's go ahead and get on the road. This top-of-line turbo model has the pretty high-resolution 360 camera, very easy to park. I completely think it's unnecessary in a vehicle of this size. Parking sensors is really all you would need because this thing is tiny. It's a pocket rocket. I will call it that, because once we get out onto the road, it is always wanting to party. And there's only one vehicle that I've tested recently, and that's a crossover, I should say, that has the same sort of like, hey, let's go hard and let's go all the time. That was a Alfa Romeo Stelvio. That thing wanted to go and party all the time with the slightest press of the throttle, despite what mode you're in. That's the same thing here with this Mazda CX-30. Its accelerator is so touchy, and it doesn't weigh, well, I guess, you know, it's not the lightest vehicle with the all-wheel drive. There's a beautiful hatchback Mazda right there, but she wants to go all the time, even in normal mode. Sport mode is like almost undrivable to me because it's overly sensitive, but let's just a small press and we gone. Sounds awesome. This thing is, it's essentially like it has a V8 underneath the hood. And you know, like a V8, it doesn't get good fuel economy either. I'm seeing about mid-20s driving my kids to school, but at least you get a ton of performance. I'm also reviewing a Kia Soul this week that gets about mid-20s in town, and that has like half the horsepower. So yeah, I mean, at least you get, you know, it's satisfying. I really like Mazda's 6 speeds. Yeah, they're archaic compared to 8 and 9 speeds, but they're a little bit more decisive in picking the gears and just grabbing onto something and ripping as hard as it can. And yeah, with the amount of torque it has, you don't need all the gears that we see in modern transmissions as well. So it's just always wanting to party. It's essentially a lifted hot hatch. This thing is a lot of fun to drive, and it's hard to keep your feet out of the pedals. It's just begging you all the time to maximize this turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. For safety features, Mazda still has work to do here. You know, the CX-90 that just came out offers a new generation of safety features which feel far more sophisticated and accurate and more predictable and just better at lane centering. The lane centering technology here, it kind of has it, but it never, like, I haven't seen it turn green with the steering wheel once, so you might have to be at higher speeds, and even then, in previous testings, like, it just doesn't do a good job keeping you in the lane. So Mazda is kind of the bottom of like the safety standard world for cars. If that doesn't bother you, it typically doesn't bother me. But I mean, I'm so spoiled with modern lane keeping systems in a lot of the press cars I drive, and Mazda just can't hold a candle to them with this outdated driving software. Comfort though is fantastic. I actually feel more comfortable in here, even though it's small. I feel more comfortable here than the CX-50 or the CX-5. Those have pretty hard seats in my testing. These CX-30 seats are, well, the leather in them is very soft, but yeah, like my arms just melt into the traditionally soft Mazda armrests here. And these seats are supportive yet very soft and comfy at the same time. Now let's talk about blind spots, because the B-pillars in here are thick, and the seat, all like this passenger seat, also eats into my visibility when I look over my right shoulder with that headrest. So yeah, like it is not, I feel like I'm looking through blinders essentially for like what horses wear, right? So it's just unfortunate, but that's what makes this vehicle so striking from the exterior. It gives it that beautiful look, like I said earlier, but you compromise with interior visibility. And looking out the back window, it's not bad, to be honest. But you know, if you rarely have people back there, you could take out the headrests and see a little bit better back there. But I have car seat back there that takes up a good chunk of the back window visibility too. Okay, we're gonna put in a sport mode, do a little 0 to 60 here. Jeez Louise. It fought for traction there. You heard the tires squealing. 6.44. I think it can actually go quite a bit faster than that if the tires and the road was a bit warmer. So 6.44 0 to 60 and 6.81 0 to 100. It feels faster than that, honestly, when you're driving in day-to-day traffic and stop and go traffic. Like, this thing has just so much power off the line. You know, most of that tire spin was coming from the front wheels, which is kind of surprising, because it does feel very front heavy. When you steer this car, you throw it in the turns, like it feels like it's 60%. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but it feels like the majority of the weight is definitely on the front tires, and it seemed like it there as well. Like, they just couldn't get enough traction, and the all-wheel drive system couldn't send enough power to the rear wheels to get me going. You know, like I said, handling this thing is not, you know, it is tiny on the inside and the outside. I love that color on the Bronco Sport. It's just, it feels way heavier than what it looks like. So when you're, you know, the steering feels good in here. It has a nice resistance and heft to it, and I feel like it's pretty responsive, and you feel what's coming from the road. It's just, it feels heavy and bogged down for the size of this vehicle. So let's go and take it out of sport mode, because it is so torquey and twitchy. With the non-turbo model, I'll put the weight up on the screen, and since it weighs a little bit less, I wonder how it feels when you throw that thing in the turns. It probably feels a little bit more light, fleet-footed compared to this heavy front bias turbo model. The brakes have a real nice heft to them, very linear. And it's funny, because last week I said I drove the Crown, right? The Crown's pedals were very heavy, but not responsive. The gas pedal here is extremely light and extremely responsive. So when I got into this thing, I was like chirping the tires, because it's not because it's more powerful than the Crown. It's just that the pedal's very, very sensitive. I can say that over and over again because this thing wants to party all the time, Eddie Murphy style. Now up to about 55 miles an hour here. Very little road noise and tire noise. I'm not getting any wind buffeting at all. And I feel like I need to yell typically, and that's why it probably sounds like I'm yelling. At 55, 60 miles an hour, I have to talk a little bit louder when I review cars. And this is a louder piece of pavement here, but it's still doing an amazing job keeping the sound out of the cabin. I don't know if I would call it luxury, but definitely premium sound suppression here, and very well done, like no wind buffeting, no wind noise coming in. It's all coming from the road. And if you had maybe smaller wheels on the non-turbo models, it might actually be quite a bit quieter. Now, what about the torsion beam situation for the rear suspension? A lot of you guys like to harp on Mazdas for that. For the most part, it's a very smooth riding vehicle. When you're pushing it in the turns, you can tell that it's not as well planted as it should be back there. And sometimes with broken pavement or bumps in the road, you feel a lot of that jitteriness back there, but that's pretty rare because most of the time with my smooth roads, it just handles everything like you're on glass. But every once in a while, it seems a little skittish and jittery back there, so take that for what it's worth, but I still think it rides really well for a vehicle of its price. But should you buy this turbo model over the non-turbo? Should you buy this compared to other premium vehicles out there? Because it might be a bargain. So let's go ahead in the office. Let's talk about where this vehicle falls in terms of pricing and other trim levels to see which is the best buy for the Mazda CX-30.
Looking at the builder of the CX-30, and this is Mazda's kryptonite right now, is they just offer so many different packages. It's hard to get my head ever wrapped around all the different features that they option per trim level. But what does it cost you to get into the 2.5 liter turbo premium? Well, it starts at $33,800, and that is on top. Like, look at the starting price for the 2.5S. So there's about, oh gosh, what is that? An 11 grand difference from the base CX-30 to the turbo CX-30. And it does provide a completely different experience. If you want a lifted hot hatch, that's essentially what this is, then yeah, you're probably going to be willing to pay $33,000 plus. The top of the line Premium Plus that I reviewed, $35,000 starting price. For me, where I live, I think the 2.5S Select is a good deal. I don't need all that power. It is addictive, but you definitely don't need it. You get the blind spot monitor, you get the rear cross traffic alert, you get the 18-inch alloy wheels, and you get dual zone climate control. So let's go ahead and build off the 2.5S. Now, it comes all-wheel drive standard. Every Mazda crossover all-wheel drive standard. I'm a big fan of Soul Red Crystal Metallic. And on the interior, can we get a lighter interior here? No, the only way to get a lighter interior is we have to go to the 2.5S Preferred, which if it's that important for you, then go ahead and change that vehicle. But the fact that this 2.5S doesn't have a sunroof is going to help keep this cabin cooler, at least for me down here in hot Florida. The 2.5S Select shakes out to be $27,370. What is available in my area for the Mazda CX-30? Well, I think this Carbon Edition, which wasn't on the builder, I don't remember, I didn't look through it that closely, but the Carbon Edition is pretty cool. Adds some cool features to it, the big black wheels, that gunmetal paint color as well. So I like that too. And I think it's a good deal under $30,000. But I'm going to look at the lowest price possible to see what kind of deals you can get. Man, at $23,000, I think it's still a good deal. And, I also just reviewed the Kia Soul today. This is a better car, way better car than the Kia Soul. Now, it's not as practical in terms of interior cargo space, but this has all-wheel drive. It has more power, has a real automatic transmission. So if you can find an entry-level model here under $25,000, $23,000, $24,000, I think that is a pretty darn good deal. And even you can find some of the S Select models that, when I built it was $27,000. You can get them for under $27,000. Looks like some dealers are willing to deal a little bit on the CX-30. So, and we're looking at the turbos here, starting at $34,000 for the best price. I mean, 10 grand more. I know it gives you more features as well as a ton more power, but in my opinion, that's just a lot of money to upgrade over the already excellent base models, or should I say the entry-level powertrain, which is pretty darn good for this segment with the amount of power of torque it has in the 6-speed auto. So in my opinion, not worth it at $35,000 for the CX-30 Turbo unless you want that sleeper personality. So if you don't compare this to the base powertrain, and you compare this more to like what you would see in the premium segment, if we look at, let's say, the Lexus UX, this has way more power and torque than a Lexus UX and would smoke it. But this gets like 25 to 30 miles per gallon, where the UX gets 40. And if you compare it to maybe a BMW X1, great deal. If you compare it to some of the Mercedes products out there, it's a great deal for the amount of power and interior that it gives you. And build quality, reliability should be pretty good on this turbo model. Absolutely. So if you compare it to the premium models, it's a complete steal. If you compare it to the base entry-level trim of the Mazda CX-30, it's not a good deal. But let me know which powertrain you'd be going for with the Mazda CX-30. And make sure to stay tuned, because I'm headed to Japan in October, where Mazda will definitely have a booth, maybe even a press conference for the Japan Mobility Show. So I'm excited to see what they have to share. Probably the CX-80, which is their 3-row version of our CX-90. I'm almost positive that's going to be revealed there at the Mobility Show. So stay tuned for that if you want to see that coverage, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you made this far in the video, I appreciate you. Hit the like button, subscribe for more. Have a great day. Peace.